My name is Seren Jones. I am a host producer at Blanchard House. My podcast is called Black and Blue. It's about a man called Michael Morrison and his journey and career in law enforcement as a Black African-American officer. He eventually is accused of police brutality, and the thing that really throws Michael off is that the person who accuses him is a young Black man. Michael is torn then between his identity as an African-American and his identity as a police officer. But really what this show is about is having two identities, very contradicting identities, and having to pick one, questioning whether you can really ever separate who you are from what you do. When I was 18, I left my hometown in Cardiff and moved to New York. I was super excited to be immersed in the cliche of the melting pot in New York City and Long Island. And consequently, I expected to see a ton of Black people in spaces where I thought they would be, but that wasn't necessarily the case. I noticed a huge lack of representation was in law enforcement. And I found that over the years, I was kind of craving an understanding and a perspective from Black police officers. And that's where the intrigue and the curiosity kind of came from. Black and Blue is not the show I thought it would be when I started producing it. Michael Morrison decides to become a police officer in the late 1980s, eventually joins Maplewood Police Department, which is this quaint suburb 30 minutes outside of New York City. But what Michael Morrison discovers along his way is that things aren't what they seem in this town. It's ended up spiraling around not just Michael Morrison, but three of his peers who were also Black officers and their experiences in law enforcement. This isn't just a story about one man and his journey, but it's also about what law enforcement looks like and how it's perceived across the US and for millions of Americans. Mike Morrison is probably the most human of human beings you could meet. He cares about people. He cares about his people. He's poured his blood, his sweat, his tears into policing, into community policing, into proactive policing. And when he reached a point in his career where that wasn't appreciated anymore and he was accused of brutality, that was something that really made him weigh up his Blackness against his job and his duties as a law enforcement officer. Michael's story is extremely powerful. It's one that is impactful. It hasn't been heard before. Groups of people who don't have their voices heard usually have the most to say. So give it a listen.
Listen to Black and Blue, Behind the Badge, wherever you get your podcasts.